Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us here on the broadcast. And later we'll be sampling your feedback on Twitter. The hashtag is Daybreak at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Already some of your feedback coming in, and we'll be putting the questions to the panel in studio and also virtually by Dr. Kinyanjui Koimbori. In studio, I am with the woman MP, Isiolo County, Momina Bonaya, and the communications manager, the Kenya Red Cross Society, that is on the forefront in leading assistance efforts in reaching out to the vulnerable Kenyans who have been affected by the drought. Let's take a look at the numbers of Kenyans affected. Here's what's coming up. And 4.5 million Kenyans are on the brink of tipping into farming, according to the government. And this is the worst drought in 40 years, according to the government and the National Drought and Management Authority, which had projected the numbers with regards to the Kenyans who have been affected. NDMA also says 960,000 children are facing malnutrition, with high rates being reported in the counties of Marsabit, Mandera, Garissa, Baringo and Isiolo counties, to which the woman MP in studio has spoken that no efforts have been made in reaching out to those who have been affected in the county of Isiolo. 9 out of the counties affected, including Kilifi, Mandera, Marsabit, Samburu, Turkana, Wajir, Isiolo, Kitwe and Kajiado, are in the alarm phase of the drought, according to the National Drought and Management Authority. And 4.35 million Kenyans have been affected by the drought in the country, which then means assistance is needed from both state and non-state actors. 22 of the 29 counties out from the arid and semi-arid lands are still facing critical drought situation because of the failed rains, according to NDMA, and the invasion of farms by fall armyworm, which they say is likely to exacerbate the food insecurity situation in the country. 1.4 billion Kenya shillings is the money used by the state in the livestock offtake program since September, according to the National Drought and Management Authority, targeting the pastoralist communities who have been severely affected by the drought situation. And according to NDMA, some of the non-arid and semi-arid land counties that have been affected by drought include the counties of Kirinyaga, Kiambu, Machakos, Nakuru, Murang'a, Elgeyo Marakwet, Homa Bay, Migori and Siaya counties. It says that more efforts need to be rolled out from the actors as to the alleviation of the drought situation in the country. Peter, I come to you, because we are largely talking about, for instance, the money spent on the livestock offtake program. But do you also prioritize the creation of awareness and the idea to imbue in the pastoralist communities on the commercial bit of the livestock herd that they have? For instance, 300 will lead to overgrazing if there are 10 families living in certain domain areas, which then means that you have 3,000 herds. Which will lead to overgrazing and depletion of the small pasture which is available. Do you also give them awareness about the commercial element of selling some to create money, and in such situations of the current state of drought state in the country, that then money can be of help in terms of buying household items?
Certainly we do, and our drought interventions are beyond emergency response. And one critical aspect of what Kenya Red Cross does with the community is, early warning and preparedness. And what you're talking about is one of those early warning interventions that, we undertake. Working with the communities to be able to predict what is going to happen and advise and work with the communities to use their internal, to build their resilience. So yes, these things, have been discussed. We do not only discuss about, destocking when we feel that the situation is about to get worse, but even for the farmers, there are interventions that, look at, responding to the climate crisis, because climate change now is a reality that we have to face, and we have to educate our communities to be able to deal with. So interventions that helps farmers decide what kind of crops, what seeds to use, are also some of the interventions that we're working on in some of these counties. We are in Kilifi, we are in West Pokot, we are in some parts of Isiolo working around this. So yes, that particular aspect of working with farmers early enough, warning, making sure that they can save on the pastures that they have. Those who can destock are able to do so with the hope that when the situation improves, then they can also restock. Those are some of the interventions that we are working with communities to ensure that they are in place long before the drought gets to where it is. And yes, we've had the offtake program in many of these counties. It started in 2020, early 2022. Some farmers benefited, but as the woman rep has said, and which I concur with very strongly, is that some of these interventions, some of them came late, and they may not have been enough. And we know that a lot of them lost a big percentage of their livestock, sadly.
And then going forward, because the delay, it seems, of rolling out of the humanitarian efforts or assistance by both the government and non-governmental organizations, do they then understand the outpacing drought? Because you delay, then you have families or many Kenyans who will be on the brink of starvation, cases of malnutrition, because we'll be talking about schools reopening and the burden this has on teachers and equally parents. But how well will these efforts be coordinated, and are they being done? Is that the reality on the ground?
Well, there's something that I think as a country we need to begin using, that is climate information when it comes to planning, both for the community and for the government. Because if you look at how response is done, you will clearly see that there's a disconnect between what is happening on the ground and what we sit in our boardrooms to plan and execute. Because in an emergency situation, you will expect response to be timely. Right now, we are talking of millions of herd that has died. What if, suppose we had timely response coming from government in terms of offtake program? We would have, saved a lot of property. Because it doesn't make sense to lose millions and millions of herd when we had a program that could actually cushion the pastoralists from that. So what we see is a situation where by the time intervention or response from government gets to the ground, people are in a state of, having lost hope completely. In fact, in the word of an old man, they say the vultures arrive before the response from the government. And that's exactly what we see on the ground. So right now we are seated giving briefs to the media, talking in the boardroom, planning, and yet people are dying, livestock are dying.
Okay.
We are talking of long-term intervention in terms of dams. Dams for who? Because by the time you build those dams, there will be no herd. There will be no human. So what are we doing, honestly? For me, the whole issue is about how we coordinate the connection that needs to be with the community and the government. That needs to be strengthened. That needs to be seen.
Okay.
And that's what is missing.
Okay. Dr. Kinyanjui, when we talk about numbers, because it isn't just about what we put on air, 960,000 children facing malnutrition with high rates that have been reported in the counties of Marsabit, Mandera, Garissa, Baringo, and the counties of Isiolo. I mean, look, schools are reopening in the next fortnight, in the next 2 weeks or so. And here, it seems a burden, isn't it, when you have learners who will not be reporting to school because of hunger. And is it then, will it be enough to have all learners in schools, especially in the counties that have been severely affected, for the government to have the school feeding program on course, because that is a safe haven for them? Yes, Dr.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And maybe something I need to reiterate is that, as you have said, is that drought and what is happening right now is going to affect mostly the children and the school-going people, because most of these people who are living in these drought-stricken areas, they're the elderly, and they depend on their children to fetch water, to go and look for pasture, for cattle in long distances. So what we are saying is that we are hoping the government will actually look into the reopening of these schools. And one thing they should work towards is ensuring that they have a school feeding program, which will ensure that these pupils actually go to school through the encouragement of having meals, either having porridge during break time, having meals during lunchtime. And these are things that the government should be working towards, and even giving them takeaway foods that can go home and cook for the other family members. So the educational sector will actually be impacted. Put in mind that we are trying to make sure that Kenya is literacy free in terms of free education, but the transition is a huge problem. And this catapults even to the transition to universities. You see the people who actually excelling very well in Kenya in the educational sector, most of them come from areas that are food secure. So when you're food insecure, it leads to malnutrition, it leads to the affect the development of the brain when it comes to the cognitive areas. So this is a huge problem that I'm saying even the educational sector and the health sector need to come and work together, provide even supplements that can help these people who are living in arid areas even develop their brain capacity, because right now with the drought, we are seeing malnutrition and even the school-going children being affected.
Okay, Peter, because I'm sure that is also an area of concern for you, but also this is a conversation that must have the component of the climate change issue, because the world around us is changing. And Kenya is among the countries that is bearing the brunt of the climate crisis in the world, yet it isn't, or Africa isn't, a big polluter for that matter of carbon. Do you engage the communities on the importance of conservation efforts and planting of trees? Because it seems then the effort must be taken from the bottom and the initiation of the same. Is that a conversation that you have with the people who have been affected, even as you roll out the assistance programs?
Yes, Ayub, climate change is a major program area for the Kenya Red Cross. In fact, this year we have launched a massive tree planting program. We're targeting to plant some 5 million trees by 2025. This also, of course, feeds into what the government is also doing. And our tree planting efforts, are done basically by the community through our volunteers. And this is part of our efforts to tell them that, yes, we have not contributed to climate change to the extent that we are today, but we can do something as communities to mitigate this impact going forward. And those are the programs that we're putting in to make sure that at least communities can take their own initiative to be able to mitigate and try to reverse some of these effects that we are seeing going forward.
Mm-hmm. And is that well received? Because there must be an understanding in establishing that communication. Are you talking with them? Because with establishes the symbiotic relationship of them also talking to you for understanding, because you are talking to people who might not understand the debate that we might be having at this level of the climate crisis.
Happily, most of our communities have all along been environmentally conscious. It's only that the rate at which climate has been changing, has been much faster that they can adopt and be able to cope. So that is why a lot more needs to be done. And I can confirm to you that these efforts are being received very, very well across the country.
All right. Honorable Mumina, because one of the consequences of the ongoing drought is the increase in the number of cases of gender-based violence. I mean, is that also an area that the concerned parties here, both state and non-state actors, the government and non-governmental organizations, ought to be paying an adequate attention to?
Thank you, Ayub. I think that is an area probably that we should focus on going forward. And as a representative of this special group, that is one area I would like to engage more in terms of, having a conversation with the community and at family level. Mm-hmm. Like Dr. Kinyanjui said, we are getting into a station where someone has lost entire herd. So this is someone who probably requires psychosocial support. And if that doesn't happen, then you can imagine how we'll vent the, the emotion that is trapped up in him. So that will affect family. Definitely it will affect family. Hunger will affect family, and it will lead to, violence at that level. So this is a conversation that should be part of the response that we are talking about. Just like we are saying, as we reopen school in the coming days, what are the mitigation measures to ensure that we don't lose on the gains that we've made on 100% transition? Because the likely situation is that most of our kids will drop out of school. Not because of anything, but because of the worsened drought situation. So there's a lot that needs to be, talked about. There's a lot that needs to be done. We are talking of, water crisis for the hard, but now it will go to the schools as well, because these schools are in the same area. So where will the water come from? So there will be need for water tracking. There will be need for, fuel subsidy for motorized boreholes. And it's not cheap, it's very expensive. So all these are things that we need to talk about. How do we do it then? How can then Red Cross, other organizations, the county government, national government, Ministry of Education, Health Ministry, Ministry of Interior, all these other ministries that, issues touch on, come together and discuss this matter, see how that can be undertaken. And this is a call for action.
Okay.
I've been on the ground. I've seen how the situation is bad. We are talking of, it could be worse. It could be worse in the coming days. But I'm saying it's already worse. We are in a crisis. So what needs to happen? What needs to happen? I don't see the call for action to the level where it's equivalent to what I've observed on the ground.
Okay. Dr. Kinyanjui, before we talk about the alarming deterioration of the country's vegetation cover and what needs to be done around the promotion of sustainable agriculture practices, talk to me about, picking from where the MP has left, the dilemma that is facing the parents, because you have cash transfer programs targeting families, then they are torn between sending their kids to schools and sourcing for livelihoods. I mean, it's a great divide, isn't it, and a dilemma that faces parents as the schools reopen. Yes, Dr.
Yes, this is a huge dilemma, especially affecting the parents and the children. And these are the people who are mandated with most of the work in these areas. Remember, they're the ones who are actually using almost 80% of their time in the kitchen area, be it cooking, looking for water. And this is a lot of manpower we are losing, because people in arid areas, they spend almost 90% of their time during their day in search of water and cooking. So this is energy that could have been used in actually economic upliftment and development. So yes, we are losing even critical manpower, which we need in development of Kenya and different sectors. And even the children are being affected. We are seeing malnourished children, we are seeing stunted growth in children, and even the educational sector is being affected. And that's, maybe it can be a huge contribution towards the poor performances of children in these arid areas, as opposed to people who are living in areas which are food secure. We have seen even counties which were food secure initially, they are now food insecure, heading toward that area, be it Nakuru, we are seeing Murang'a, we even seen Nyeri. And this is an alarming scenario that we need to talk about, because as opposed to other climate change calamities that we are seeing, be it floods, they come at once and people actually see it. But drought is something that is systematic. It happens over a long period of time, because right now we are talking about the 5th failed season. Since the first season that failed up to now, people are just seeing reduced rainfall patterns and talking about this is just a dry spell. It will rain next month or something like that. But now we are talking about the 5th season. So what I'm saying is that we need to see how best these families, and actually the vulnerable communities, we need to even to have statistics of people who are living with disabilities in these arid areas. because these are people who cannot even go and look for food in those other areas. I've seen solutions that can work. We are seeing Turkana, areas of Turkana, the adjacent areas, having issues of water. I've seen the developed nations where they have implemented the scientific methods of desalination, where the salt water can be transformed into fresh water so that it can either be used for human consumption or even irrigation. So these are things that also we need to look into. How can we embrace nature-based solutions and either scientific-based solutions towards tackling the issue of drought, which is actually a subsect of climate change?
Okay. Peter, the target has been the counties that have been severely affected by the drought, but NDMA says, and of course Red Cross, that you do represent here, that non-ASSAL counties have also been affected. Parts of Kieni, that is in the county of Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Kiambu, and there seems to be, even Elgeyo Marakwet County in the Rift Valley, there seems to be a rise in the number of cases in this regard. And whilst you are overwhelmingly prioritizing the counties that are ASSAL, traditionally ASSAL counties, I mean, with increase in the number of cases that are non-traditionally ASSAL counties, does that then stretch you in terms of resources and inundate your personnel?
Yes, we have been saying that, you know, more and more people are getting into the pool of those who need help. More and more counties are getting into that situation. Counties that have been self-sustaining, like Nyeri, Meru, you know, large parts of Meru, those sides of Mbere, are generally now affected. And yes, that then means that we have to focus beyond the ASSAL counties. So what does this call for? This calls for the same message that we've been passing across, that we need all hands on deck. We need everybody to really just understand and support the efforts that are being done. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who is going where. What matters is that the people who need help are getting the help that they require, whether it is in these counties. And we have not been responding actually only in the ASSAL counties. We have been doing food distribution in Kieni, in Nyeri. We have been to schools in Machakos, in Meru, in all these counties, at least where we have partners supporting. Because Red Cross depends largely on what partners locally and internationally bring to the table. And then our work is to facilitate. So we invite all partners to be able to do something. We invite all Kenyans in whichever form that they can to bring something on the table so that everywhere, wherever they are, that they need support, they can get this support.
And so far, with regards to the kitty that was established in reaching out to Kenyans who have been affected, and this largely from the private and public partnership in this case, which involves corporate organizations. How key has that been, and of what help has it been with regards to the assistance that you're rolling out to the vulnerable communities across the country?
For us, the support from partners has been of massive help. We're working with private sector agencies like the Kenya Manufacturers Association. We're working with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Individual corporates are coming in to provide support. I have just said that in the course of this weekend and next week, we will be having distribution in Samburu, in Isiolo, and in Marsabit. This is supported under the Kenya Manufacturers Association. So these efforts have really boosted what we are able to do. But is it enough? I will echo the message that Mheshimiwa has just said. We need more because, you go to one village, you give one village food for 1 week. That is just for 1 week. After 1 week, so what next? But then the next village, which you were, last week or the other week, are still in need, because you have to keep helping the same people to sustain them. But as you do that, more and more people from other areas that ordinarily did not require help, continue to need help. So we should not tire. We should not look at the small gains that we have seen. The rains coming in, and we say that, okay, now the situation has improved. That is not where we are. We are in for the long haul. We continue to appeal for more support so that more people can receive the help.
Okay, Honorable Mumina, Peter talks about more efforts in reaching out to the people who have been affected. Now the Minister for the East Africa Community, Assals and Regional Development says that according to NDMA, some 22 counties still remain in the critical phase of the drought, despite the situation improving in some other counties because of the showers in late December. Here again is another cycle that we're talking about of the dry period between January to March this year. For planning purposes and for the resources to be enough, how well do the actors need to take note of this in order to not talk about shortage with regards to assistance and reaching out to the most vulnerable, because schools are equally reopening and you have 90 days of the academic calendar that will be lapsing in April?
Thank you, Ayub. I think talking of drought situation, we will likely see it in more bits. There will be frequency. There will be increased frequency, and the magnitude in terms of disasters that come with climate crisis will be more and more. So that calls for proper planning and budgeting. When we do our planning and budgeting, both at county and national level, we should give focus to the main livelihood, which is pastoralism. Mm-hmm. Pastoralism also goes with seasonal calendar. It's not a surprise for us that we are in a drought situation. We knew that we were getting into a drought situation. There will be failed rains, there will be depressed rain, we'll be in a situation where there will be crisis and emergency response will be required. If we knew that at community level, can we incorporate that in our planning and budgeting as well? So that it's not always a crisis in terms of, looking for funds, fundraising to respond to the situation. So the thing is, in terms of even development, we need to rethink the model for pastoral areas. It can't be the same as, other rich counties mm-hmm. in terms of how we view development. When we are talking of doing dams, where do you want to do dams? Because in this rangeland, there are places you can't do dams. There are places you can't do boreholes because of the way grazing is designed. Mm-hmm. There are wet grazing areas, there are dry grazing areas, there are drought fallback areas where you need boreholes, you don't need dams. So are we, as development people, as policymakers, are we aware of all this? Or we just sit somewhere and decide for the people that they need dams, they need boreholes? If you look at the number of resources that has gone into water development in NonAssal, you'll be shocked. I think we probably need to do a research on how much resources from government and non-state actors have been invested in NonAssal areas to develop water facilities. They are in billions. Okay. But up to date, how many years after independence, we are still talking of water shortage in those areas. What could be the reason? Those are some of the things that points to the fact that we need to rethink development model for this area. We should not be telling people that they abandon pastoralism and move to crop farming. Crop farming also requires water. So where will water come from? The environment is the same. Probably pastoralism is well supported within the rangeland system. So the issue here is we need to have better understanding of how rangeland works, how grazing is undertaken, and so that can be incorporated within our thinking of how development should happen in those areas. So our budgeting and our planning also need to be reorganized. We should not be always in a crisis. We should be prepared for these disasters all the time, because it's likely that the frequency of these drought will increase, okay. The magnitude of the disasters will increase going forward. So should we be always talking about response, emergency response? No. We have counties that are receiving money. We have national government that can support the process. Let us be in a situation where there's sanity. Okay. Because every year we are in a situation where we are saving lives and we are saving livelihoods. It shouldn't be like that. Okay.
Daktari, let's talk about this, because in the last month, according to a report by NDMA, there has been an alarming deterioration of vegetation cover in the country, which has impacted the production of agriculture in the country and the challenges that farmers continue to face. I mean, what measures need to be implemented in terms of promoting sustainable agriculture practices, which in turn will inform food security in Kenya? Yes, Dr.
Yes, the report which was, the statement which was actually issued by NDMA in terms of the loss in vegetation and due to drought is something that is alarming in terms of putting in mind that these vegetations, they play a huge role. First of all, the vegetation or the pasture acts as food for these animals. And on top of that, remember these vegetations, they are part of our ecosystems and they play a huge role in carbon sequestration. That is, this pasture helps to absorb carbon in the atmosphere, thereby reducing the effects that we are seeing of climate change. So whenever we see these pastures reducing, it exposes the soil within these areas. That is, it exacerbates the issue of desertification. So when the soil is exposed, it loses more moisture, and even the soil, which is part of the carbon sinks, it helps to absorb the carbon, it releases more carbon. So when you look at some of the measures or the measures that we can implement to ensure that the vegetation increases, I go back to the issue of which the women rep of Isiolo she has talked about, is these people who are living in arid areas are mostly pastoralists. And when you're talking about pastoralists, most of these methods they use for grazing is free-range grazing, which is very detrimental when it comes to vegetation and pasture. So we should talk about other methods of grazing which are able to conserve the vegetation. Here I'm talking about rotational grazing, but this is only possible if we have measures such as irrigation being put in place. So irrigation is another method which can work towards ensuring the vegetation increases. Also, we are talking about the planting of pasture or crops which are able to be, which are actually drought resistant. And here I'm talking about either hybrid cultivars, either the GMO we are talking about right now, so that we can be able to increase the pasture in these areas. Also, we need to see how best we can incorporate the issue or the aspect of irrigation, the use of greenhouses, which are able to actually create a conducive environment for pasture to flourish in these areas. So the issue of climate change, having come from the COP27 in Egypt, what we learned is that the causes of climate change are local, but the effects of climate change are global. So we are hoping, in fact, the COP27 delegation that went there, which I was part of, we can be able to get the money which was set aside for loss and damage. And that's why the issue of loss and damage was on the table, and Kenya was discussed, and also Somalia and Ethiopia, which are part of the Horn of Africa, as part of the loss and damage. And we are hoping to see this money coming into Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia, and even Sudan, so that we can be able to solve all these issues.
Okay, thank you. And because we haven't been doing this conversation alone, your feedback on Twitter, this is what you are saying. Starting off with viewer number one, and this is what you are saying on the hashtag Daybreak on Twitter. Esawe says drought can have devastating effects on communities and the environment. Government must be prepared with effective mitigation and adaptation strategies to protect citizen and natural resources. The Kenya Kwanza administration says promised nobody will go without food. We are yet to see that. Godi Barasawere says the best way for the national government to effectively deal with the drought crisis is to ensure that the county governments are adequately aided to carry out climate change assessment and research through their environment departments. Engineer Lazaro says government should be smart enough to plan ahead of the situation, or else we risk being reduced to being a reactional nation which only reacts when already caught. Rev Harry _Kosgei says, though climate change is a reality, let the counties team up with the national government and deal with this crisis affecting Kenyans every year and bring a long-term solution. It's possible if we put politics behind. That's what you're saying on the hashtag on Twitter. Final comments from you, Peter, and then the Honorable Woman MP.
Thank you very much, Ayub. My final comments are just that we still remain in a very difficult situation. Many of our countrymen will continue to require that those who have something to spare should be able to help. As Red Cross, we've realized that those donations are going down, and I think it's probably because, like we said, people think that the situation has improved, which is not the case. And so we just continue to appeal that all of us as agencies, government, non-state players, we must continue to see this drought situation as our collective problem, and that all efforts must be collective, must be put on the table to address it.
Asante. Thank you. Honorable Momina.
Thank you, Ayub. I think this is a conversation that needs to continue. First of all, the focus should be on saving lives. I know most of the time we are tempted to think about long-term intervention, which is a good thing, because in the end we need to get a lasting solution to this problem. But I think having been on the ground, what is needed right now is a strategy and response and intervention that will save lives and livelihoods. And I want to appeal to everybody else in this country and beyond, if they are able to team up and help us mobilize resources to be able to support the communities, because there's a lot of vulnerabilities at that level. When you look at household level, when you look at the herders in the field, the grazing field, there's a lot of needs that needs to be addressed urgently. So my appeal to everybody, to the national government, to the different ministries that are concerned, including education ministry. Let's see how we can work together, because we are ready as leaders to work with the government so that we can provide solution to this problem.
Thank you, and your time is all appreciated. Many thanks for gracing Daybreak here on the broadcast. Peter Abwao is the communications manager, the Kenya Red Cross. Thanks for your time and company. The woman MP, Isiolo County, Momina Bonaye, was with us also. Thanks for your time, Mheshimiwa. And also we had Dr. Kinyanjui Koimbori, who joined us virtually, who is an agriculture and climate change expert, all giving us the account of the drought situation and the government's continuity and the grappling with the drought situation in the country and the effects which are compounding on children and also on women, with increase in the number of gender-based violence cases across the country reported. And thank you to you too for waking up with us here on the broadcast. The hashtag on Twitter has been Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422. At Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikadir. And here is coming to an end of the broadcast. Up next is Level Up Friday, and Willie Saburo will be on that with DJ Timo, as per the directive given to me by my producer Winnie. Thanks for your time, T-Boy. Thanks for your time and company. We'll do this again next Friday by the grace of God. Good morning.